Good morning. It's Quant Trade Edge, and pretty much everything we were watching seems to have already played out. So I was going to do an early wrap up and call it a day so I don't sit around and get myself into trouble. The first thing we talked about in yesterday's wrap up was the Australian dollar and how there would be more, or could be more follow through. And this was the breakout as it looked yesterday, and then of course this happened overnight. So that's just kind of key to have that patience when you see a really nice pattern that's broken out. And if you take it down even further to a 60-minute, and let's put our Gann counter on it, and you will notice, I'll blow it up so you see it real big. Beautiful 60-minute pattern here. A, B, C. And that gave you a very tight risk bar of about 7 ticks, and then we went off for over 100. And it's nice that it's happening on an hourly bar. You have plenty of time to set that trade up, but that's your risk. This was your reward. I think to the peak it was about 16 times. And while we're still on the Australian dollar, I wanted to show you one more pattern that played out. And this is after this extreme move to the upside. And this is now a 5-minute chart. We got a very clean A, B, C to the downside. So this would make a very clean U-turn below this. And, time of day wise, we look at European close, which is around 10:30, which is around here, which is when the pattern actually broke. It's set up by 9:45 and then spent all this time in here just kind of melting away. And then once we broke this 76.22 and a half, wow, 20 ticks, 20 ticks in pretty short order. Which is big for the Australian dollar because the margin is fairly low and you can do quite a few contracts on tight risk like that. So that's it for the Australian dollar. The other, there are several other big things today. The natural gas, we were looking at how this would close to see if we would have a Forex trade on any weakness, but instead, we had a lot of strength in the morning. And let's see if we put up our hoagies here. You can see we kind of went from hoagie to hoagie, and this hoagie in particular, this this is a 15-minute chart now, so this is 6:30, 7:30. This top being 594.1, already being above the previous high. It just felt like we'd want to go to the next round number, which was around 6, and up here we got 602, and then after that, it got very clean on a 3-minute. We can put our moving average, let's see, this is the 10 period. Maybe drop it to the 20 period for a 2-legged pullback. And I think the first one we got was on the 2-minute. So, this is that 602 top. And then we got a very clean A, B, C. And yes, this could be in a hoagie. But, this seemed like a flush that was going to hold. This little flush that came out of nowhere just before the pit opened. So that, was kind of a judgment call there. The combination of that and the fact that we had a pretty big hoagie afterwards. In fact, it's almost this is inside to this. This is inside to this. This is inside to this. I guess this was inside to this, but so it's almost like a set of inside bars, which overall present as a hoagie. So this looked like a pretty solid pattern to go from. And this setup bar was 2.5 cents wide. So, 4X would be 10 cents above at 606.3, and it got that pretty handily. Then, it set up again on a, simultaneously on a 3 and a 5-minute. I liked the 3-minute because we also had the P1, but it worked either way. It worked on both. And this is probably where we should be watching for a U-turn in natural gas, but I would say I'm done right now. But got this very clean ABC, and then this risk bar got about 3. 4 would have been 621.4, so it didn't quite get to 4. But a couple of things you want to pay attention to here. If we put put our RSI on, look at the big loss of momentum between this high and this high. We lost a lot of momentum, and there's also a volume divergence. That doesn't mean it can't go up and put in another marginal high, hit the 4R target with an even lower, RSI. So then we would actually have a 3-legged divergence, which is a good short setup. So that's possible, but for me, in natural gas, these round numbers, probably because of option strikes, tend to have some significance. This went right to 6.201 on this high. On this high, you went to 6.156, so kind of 615, 620. I don't think we had anything significant around 610, but 60. This was 6.007. Here that got another push to 602. This high being 594, just ahead of 595. So, with that being a decent round number, and then just noting these divergences, that was good enough, for me there. Another thing we were watching for was gold, because this had a decent Taylor count to set up a good 4x trade if that were to happen. And watching earlier in the morning on a 3-minute chart, this, I guess is technically an RSU, but it also set up a P1, so that was kind of an early indicator, but I didn't actually take that P1. I was waiting for a trend line break, and this is another system called the FITS, or TLB for trend line break, with ROE, rules of engagement. We always give these some fancy names, but on this trend line break, that's kind of where I went. And then on a trend line break, I tend to look for 2 times the size of the breaking bar. So, this breaking bar was about 3.26 points. So, it was somewhere ahead, just ahead of the previous day high where I saw that, and where that target was. And then if you look at our scalping method, we had a really beautiful scalp opportunity right off of the, I'm sorry, this is a 20, let's move it back to 10 for scalping. And it was right on the EMA. So everything from, this trend line break to enter, this, scalp here to enter, and then once we got above previous day high, this is kind of where, I'd already exited here, tried to rescalp in here, but now we're waiting for our setup, right? Once we take out PDH is when we want to see a nice 2-legged pullback that isn't impulsive, that doesn't go and take this entire thing out, like we just saw on the 30-minute. Off of this low from yesterday, we had a clean A, B, C up, which meant that when we broke previous day high, that was also a 30-minute U-turn. So, longer term, what could be setting up is we got our 30-minute U-turn. Now we got our gut check. We're not taking out that low, but we're getting our gut check down here. And, again, the narrative today is rates are going up. I think we have the new highest 10-year rate that we've seen in a while. It was over 2.54 when I saw it last. So that's why the NASDAQ is particularly weak. Bonds are, down 2%. And it's hard for gold to levitate in that environment. But, structurally on a 30-minute, there hasn't really been the damage done yet. We had a U-turn, and we're respecting that pivot. So we'll see where it goes. Let's see. Other than that, it was just a nice little U-turn in crude earlier. was watching this on a 2-minute. And again, crude has such a large ATR these days that even your scalps can easily be 50 or more cents. So, there's your very clean 2-legged ABC off the low. And as soon as that U-turn broke, no heat. We went from 305 to 376, 71 cents with no heat. And then we're probably doing the gut check and, setting up whatever else. Oh, that's interesting right there. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is when you're looking at a trend line break, you also want to make sure the MACD is, has recently crossed over. So here it recently has crossed over. And if we go back to what we were watching earlier on the 3-minute gold chart, when we looked at this, with this breaking out, we'd also recently just had a crossover. I guess the bar itself caused a crossover. So that's usually a good sign. It's basically, the trend line break, price confirming what the oscillator's telling you in this situation. So that was, very active. There was a lot going on today, and I'll be back later with setups for tomorrow, but there was just so much that had already gone on. I wanted to get it out there while it was fresh in my mind. Again, if you like this content, please hit like and subscribe. We really want to reach as many people as we can out there, and the YouTube algorithm likes to see likes and subscriptions, so please go ahead and do that, and we will keep putting forth the good content.